Hello everyone, and welcome to another Xenoblade Chronicles 3 video. In today's video, I will discuss my hopes for the rapidly approaching Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Before we get started, I'd just like to say that if you enjoy this sort of content, then please consider liking the video and subscribing. It's completely free to do, and it helps the channel out hugely. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. My first hope is that the game will be packed with dramatic landscapes and beautiful world design. This is a hope that I have no doubt will be fulfilled, as it's a Xenoblade game. We've seen the trailers, we already know what we have to look forward to, and I hope there's even more to come. I really hope we get plenty of jaw-droppingly stunning locations in this game, similar to Sartorl Marsh and Valak Mountain from the first game, Oriya, the Lithirian Archipelago and Torna from the second game, and Noctilum from X. But I also hope they include some more of the mechanical and mysterious areas we've experienced in past games, like Sword Valley from Xenoblade 1 and the World Tree from Xenoblade 2. This is one of the aspects of the game I'm pretty confident Monolith Soft will deliver on. Okay, so this is post-editing Phantom, and just as I've been putting the finishing touches onto this video, Monolith posted a bunch more screenshots of some areas in the game, and they look amazing. This one is called Maktha Wildwood, and the name is clearly a play on Makna and Moritha, and the area looks to be those two areas from Xenoblade 1 and 2, just blended together, and I can't wait to see them doing more of this. Especially if we get a fusion of the two swamp areas of Xenoblade 1 and 2, Sartorl Marsh and Oriya. The areas in this game are going to be so amazing, and I am so excited for it. I also hope the game is full of plenty of stunningly composed music. We've already had a taste of the music this game will have to offer from the trailers and a few select clips, and it sounds beautiful already. I have no doubts after playing Xenoblade 1 and 2 that the soundtrack in 3 will be awesome. But I'm also looking forward to seeing the ways in which they are planning to incorporate and combine parts of the soundtracks from Xenoblade 1 and 2 into Xenoblade 3. There is evidence to suggest that this will be a part of the game because of the latest trailer, in which motifs from Engage the Enemy and Counterattack could be heard in the music playing in the background. So I hope that this combination of the previous soundtracks is present in many more tracks throughout Xenoblade 3. Plus, if they'd like to bring back or remix some of the old songs, that would be very cool too. In Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I hope we get a brilliantly written story. But this is Monolith Soft we're talking about, so I'm pretty confident that we will. What we've seen in the trailers so far looks interesting and definitely has potential. I hope we get some brilliant build-ups to shocking twists, creative world building, in-depth character development, huge lore drops, and an awesomely dramatic climax. I hope for a narrative which, for me, surpasses the amazing narratives of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is quite the hope considering the stories in the first two games are two of my favourites in any video games ever. I also hope the story manages to bring the worlds of those two games together, with an explanation in the story and lore which feels cool and logical, whilst also wrapping up the stories from those two games and their characters nicely. I'd also like to see more returning characters than those we've seen so far. I'd like to see how some of the other characters we know and love from the previous games will influence the story, whether it be through flashbacks, as some of the characters of shorter-lived races have almost certainly died of old age, and all that's left of them is their legacies and the memories that other characters have of them. Or in the present for those characters which are a bit longer lived. I hope they don't force the return of certain characters, however. If a character returns, for me, it needs to make sense as to why they're still alive, and I'd like them to have a sort of plot importance so that their inclusion doesn't feel too forced. Also, I hope they don't reuse the major antagonists from the previous two games. As for the antagonists for this game, I'd like to see some brand new ones, or perhaps some characters who were previously good guys who have since lived long enough to see themselves become the villain. I feel Xenoblade games have always struggled when it comes to map systems, so in Xenoblade 3 I hope we get a good map system with good quest markers and tracking systems too. Xenoblade 2 had a map and quest tracking system which felt like it actively hurt the experience. The markers felt to me like they'd been ripped directly from open world games like Skyrim, which work perfectly in those games, but were difficult to use to find destinations in a game as vertical and full of maze-like level design as Xenoblade Xenoblade 2. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition was much better, however, as it used a system which had lines which tracked directly to the quest marker. This was arguably a bit too handholdy, but was much better than Xenoblade 2's system. I hope they either reuse this system from Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, or find a better, less handholdy middle ground between the two. In Xenoblade 3, I'd like to see a new approach to side quests than there was in Xenoblade 1 and 2. In Xenoblade 1, most quests were simple fetch quests, with not much in terms of deeper side quests with some meaty side stories to help make the world feel a bit more real and lived in. But in Xenoblade 2, we did have a bit more of this, especially through quests like the Blade quests, which were deeper side quests which gave each unique blade in the game their own small side story. But these quests required you to level up the field skills of multiple blades in order to complete a task to make the quest go forward. This was already one of my least favourite features in Xenoblade 2, because to level up skills you had to do a bunch of tedious tasks like collecting large numbers of specific items or killing a very specific enemy tens of times, and I just thought it was really grindy. I am aware some people really like this, but it wasn't really for me. So the fact that the deeper and more engaging side quests were locked behind grinding to unlock a bunch of field skills for your blades made for one of my least favourite parts of the game. Of course I liked the fact that there was complexity and plenty of progression options and unlockables, but it just felt way too grindy to be fun for me, which made trying to complete all of the side quests a real slog, and made completion less fun. So I hope either the field skill required quests don't return, or if they do, I hope the field skill system is streamlined significantly to reduce the grind when trying to unlock the abilities of every character. But my main hope is for lots of quests which are deeper than the other fetch quests, with their own little side stories to add some extra world building into the game. One of the most important things in a Xenoblade game is the really deep and engaging combat system. So far, what we've seen, the combat looks super complex, which has me excited. We've seen Circle and Diamond arts returning from Xenoblade 1 and 2 respectively, which seem to work and charge up in the ways they did in those games, as well as other returning arts features such as arts cancelling. And also there's a few new systems to the art system, like the Arts Fusion system, which combines Diamond and Circle arts into one more powerful art. There's also a brand new chain attack system that I have no idea as to how it works yet, but it looks very complex. The new Ouroboros interlink system looks to be adding an extra layer of depth to the combat, as well as being super important in the story. So far, we've also seen plenty of new mobility and support options, such as dashing, and area of effect healing and buff fields. Safe to say, the combat does look very deep and complex, but the one thing I feel it's all banking on is how the Ouroboros interlink system and the chain attack systems work. It's not exactly clear how either work yet. So far the Ouroboros forms just look like sluggish but big DPS dealers without much more benefit than that. I feel to make the Ouroboros more satisfying to use, there needs to be something you're working towards as an objective whilst in that form, rather than just the obvious objective of doing big damage and dealing status effects. I assume the aim is to charge up the talent art in the bigger circle by performing the other available arts before the Ouroboros overheats and the interlink breaks. But I'd like to see them go even further in exploring the ways in which these Ouroboros forms can add to the combat. We also still don't know what you're working towards before you begin a chain attack, or what you're working towards during one. We can see it involves this TP or tactical point system, but yeah, I still have no idea what's going on at this point in time. In Xenoblade 2, the chain attacks were essential for creating a satisfying battle system through the use of building up elemental orbs from blade combos, which you then destroyed during a chain attack in order to trigger a full burst, and of course, massive damage. I hope there's more to the Ouroboros forms and chain attacks in Xenoblade 3 than we've been able to make sense of so far, in order to create not only a complex battle system, but a satisfying one, which has you building up to something large through every action you take across every battle you fight on your adventure. I feel that the way they handle these two things, the Ouroboros interlink system and the chain attack system, could make or break the entire combat system. So I hope the developers manage to make them work well. And finally, similar to one of my hopes from my Breath of the Wild 2 video, I hope they don't spoil too much in the marketing. This is something I'm a little worried about, as they have been sharing a lot on Twitter, and there's been a lot to unpack in the trailers. Plus, Nintendo has a track record of spoiling major things in Xenoblade trailers. Xenoblade Chronicles 3DS, 7. But let's just hope there's plenty in the game that will remain secret until it finally releases. And that concludes my hopes for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. What are your hopes for Xenoblade 3? Feel free to discuss in the comments. Here's some of the hopes of my followers on Twitter. This is something I'm going to start doing in select videos, so if you're interested in getting your thoughts featured in a video, follow me on Twitter at FakePhantom. If you enjoyed, please consider liking the video and subscribing so you don't miss any more of my Xenoblade Chronicles 3 or Nintendo related content in the future. And with that, thank you very much for watching, stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one.